I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked up. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up with the head. Derek Brooks 30. Up to the 25. 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Hello and welcome back, Bucs fans, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host for today's game preview. You know him well, Mr. Bucs Nation, a.k.a. James Hill, returns to the podcast. James, today we are taking a look at Week 9's matchup on Monday Night Football between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the back-to-back defending Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. The Bucs have got a doozy of a matchup on their hands, and a lot of people have already counted them out before this game has even began. But depending on what Buccaneers team decides to show up on Monday night, it could be a very fun matchup to watch. Your thoughts here headed into this one?
Yeah, I mean, look, firstly, happy to be here. You know, we're in our usual, month-long thing where the backup comes in, here on CFP. So I'm happy to be here. But I will say, this is going to be an interesting game. I mean, you said it. Not only are the Kansas City Chiefs the defending back-to-back Super Bowl champions, Rhett, they're also undefeated. They haven't lost a game this year. Now, a lot of their games have been very close this year. All but 2 out of their 7 wins have been one-score wins. So you take that. You also take into account that, in my opinion, I don't think the Chiefs are going to go 17-0 throughout the course. They may be due for a loss here, but Tampa's got their own issues that they are dealing with, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But, I do understand why people say this is going to be a difficult game. Of course it is, right? But I don't think the Chiefs are invulnerable. I don't think they are completely unbeatable. So I'm going to be excited to dive into it in today's episode.
Yeah, just like you said, I don't think the Chiefs are unbeatable. And I know it's ironic saying that. They're 8-0. I think the last undefeated team in the NFL right now, back-to-back Super Bowl champions. How much more unstoppable can they be at this point? It's an interesting situation for Kansas City because although they are undefeated, their offense and their quarterback in particular, I don't want to say they're sputtering. They're finding ways to win these football games, but they're not as high-powered and explosive as they have been in seasons past. And we know that even without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, this is a Buccaneers offense that, listen, Liam Coen can get these guys scoring points. And I think there's a couple of ways the Buccaneers can take advantage this week. If they can come out fast, maybe you catch Kansas City reeling. Excited to dive into that and then some. But first, let's get into some injury news for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Today, head coach Todd Bowles confirmed some pretty good news for the Buccaneers. Antoine Winfield Jr., Levante David, Tyke Smith, and Ben Bredeson are all going to be playing in this week's game. Tyke Smith is a huge return for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. Specifically in that secondary, that defensive back room has been missing a guy like Tyke Smith. The ability to force turnovers and create takeaways for this Bucs defense, that is incredibly valuable considering the other struggles they've had lately, James.
Yeah, I mean, Tyke Smith is allowing a 67.6 completion percentage when targeted so far this year, a passer rating of 103.4. That's better than Winfield. That's better than Funderburk. That's better than even Jordan Whitehead. So it is a good return here for Tyke Smith. He had a bit of a rough start to his rookie season, I think, but he is certainly caught on here as the season has progressed. He's tied for second on the team in interceptions with 1 right now. Like you said, he's got a couple of forced fumbles under his belt as well, which has been a positive thing to take a look at. So yes, I agree 100%. And I think one thing too is that even his blitzing ability, he has been the most blitzed defensive back the Bucs have had so far this year, Rhett. He's been sent on 20 blitzes so far this year. So they use him in a lot of different ways to get after the quarterback, bring some pressure and make some plays. He's a big, playmaker for the Bucs, so he will be a welcome return, absolutely.
And he's doing it all as a rookie, man. So I guess that just goes to show potentially another home run for Jason Licht. If he can stay on the field, stay healthy, he has proven to be a huge asset for this Bucs defense. Excited to see him back in action for Tampa Bay on Monday night. Lavonte David, Ben Bredeson also back in the game. Antoine Winfield Jr. going to be available. So the players out for the Bucs are wide receiver Mike Evans, that we know, defensive lineman Greg Gaines, and Evan Deckers along the the long snapper Evan Deckers. It's weird. Ever since they've moved on from Zach Triner, my brain has a hard time getting onto Evan Deckers because for the longest time it's been Zach Triner. It's kind of weird. I know this is probably the most coverage the long snapper position has ever gotten on the show, but I mean, Zach Triner was their guy for what seemed like a really long time.
Well, he's still on this roster. They brought him back after the Evan Deckers injury. So he is still, a part of what this team is doing technically. Just maybe not for much longer, depending on
if Evan Deckers can't stay healthy, they might not have a choice.
Yeah, I know. Who would have thought that we were talking about long snapper news, but that's good stuff, man. No, Triner, it'll be interesting. But yes, I will say this is the healthiest the Bucs have been, right? In a good minute. I know they have a lot of players on the IR. Jamel Dean's on the IR. Godwin's on the IR. Having Mike Evans not be there really sucks. But defensively, Lavonte David playing in this game is huge. Rhett, I think that Tyke Smith coming back is huge. I think that Winfield being healthier is huge. There's still some positives here. Greg Gaines not being there does suck for the pass rush, for the defensive line. It is unfortunate, but given contextually, the Bucs are about as healthy as they can be right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I do. And honestly, you start to talk about the presence of players that they can throw at the quarterback. This defense needs that. They need a Tyke Smith that can force takeaways because this pass rush by itself, the Bucs moved away from the blitz last week against Atlanta for some reason. I think through the third quarter, they were only blitzing on 11 or 12% of their plays. And you know that Todd Bowles, he likes to keep that percentage closer to 40, 45% a game. So they moved away from it, trusted that pass rush a little bit more, and it clearly did not get the job done. Kirk Cousins isn't Lamar Jackson. He's not Jaden Daniels. He wasn't a quarterback that was going to make them pay. They just couldn't provide ample pressure. And guys who have been able to help them do that and reward them with turnovers are guys like Tyke Smith. Antoine Winfield Jr. going to be looking to get right this week, of course. And Jordan Whitehead, kind of been struggling with communication issues this year. I hope that he comes on. A little bit of a concern. And before we dive into the rest of the injury news here, wanted to get your 2 cents on the defense. Miscommunication kind of been a concern for the secondary in particular. But Jordan Whitehead, a guy who's been in this system before, has been struggling. Some of the defensive coaches talked about it. Casey Rogers was at the podium this week and talked about Jordan Whitehead kind of still needing to catch up a little bit. Your thoughts on where they are, and then, again, the importance of a returning Tyke Smith here, even though he is a rookie.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's been pretty disappointing. Rhett, we could talk an hour about the freaking defense, man. I understand the communication is part of the issue. I think a severe lack of pass rush is a bigger issue, in my opinion. Specifically with edge rushers, JTS, Anthony Nelson, Chris Braswell, Yaya Diaby. I know you guys have talked about it a lot. In my opinion, their pass rush is just almost non-existent. But it obviously doesn't help whenever you have communication issues at the back half of your defense. And it sucks because we know what Jordan Whitehead can be whenever he's good. He is a good starting caliber safety in this league, right? So I really hope that he can get it going here soon, and can kind of get that communication back, and kind of get back into the swing of things. That might be why you've seen guys like Kayvon Merriweather in a couple of plays who got burned for a touchdown against
one snap
Kyle
all day.
Pitts.
That was his one snap all day.
Yeah, so that was going well. I think also it shows just a lack of and I talked about this on my show, like it shows a lack of depth, experienced depth, specifically in that secondary, where like behind a lot of your starters in that cornerback room, in that safety room, you've got a lot of undrafted guys that you can't really turn to. So like you've kind of got to hope that Jordan Whitehead can figure it out, right? I Bleav he will. I like Jordan Whitehead a good bit. I think he's a good player. That's interesting that they were very much highlighting in on it. But I will agree, like, yeah, he hasn't had a good past few games, so hopefully he can improve going forward.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jordan Whitehead. I was vocal after that signing, the ability to bring him back from the Jets to a defense that he had so much success in. I thought he was lethal in run protection. He's, willing to sacrifice his body, really lay it all out on the line to just lay a hit on somebody. And you love that in a defensive player. So hoping he can get right. I think he will. He is a great football player. And hopefully that'll start on Monday night against Kansas City. Diving into some more injury news this week, one of the other storylines was on the offense in the running back room. And I wanted to get your take on the running back situation here because the Bucs find themselves in a good spot. I guess in abundance of riches at the running back position. I know it is not consistently the best in the NFL yet, but I feel like the Bucs just don't know entirely how to take advantage of the three running backs that they have: Sean Tucker, Rachaad White, and Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving was on the injury report this week. He did not practice all week. He was limited on Friday and expected to give it a go. I mean, he's listed as questionable, but he's going to go, right? Todd Bowles talked this week and also said that it is a nagging toe injury for Bucky Irving. It's probably going to be a pain tolerance issue, but something they're going to try and manage and limit his practices throughout the rest of the year. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. But I mean, Bucky Irving, one thing he's proved already thus far in the NFL, he's very tough at the running back position. I think he's going to play and be just fine. But more so, James, I wanted to ask you about number 44, Sean Tucker, the Syracuse legend himself, the NFC Offensive Player of the Week after the Buccaneers hung 51 on the Saints. He got 7 snaps last week, and Todd Bowles was asked about it. He kind of alluded to the Buccaneers being behind on the scoreboard in that game early. Baker Mayfield throwing the football. He kind of said that was the reason they haven't given Sean Tucker as many carries. But, I mean, when he's not on the field, it's hard for me to think anything other than this Buccaneers coaching staff just doesn't want to use Sean Tucker the way that they use Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. What are your thoughts on this? Bowles said that Tucker's going to get a fair amount of carries going forward. Do you trust Todd Bowles? Do you think he's a man of his word here? Is this week going to be the week that Sean Tucker finally gets a fair shake if the run game can be a viable option for the offense? Because, I mean, as much as we hate to see it, Sean Tucker being the odd man out, I don't know if that's going to be the best case scenario for this Bucs running back room. I think this guy has so much he can bring to the table.
Well, like you said, it's an abundance of riches. And like, while that is a good thing, which, by the way, the Bucs actually have a top 10 rushing offense right now. They're number 10 with 1,048 rushing yards on the year. So that's great. But like you said, look, if you're giving Sean Tucker more snaps, you're either taking snaps away from Rachaad White or Bucky Irving. And I really like what Bucky Irving has done this year. He leads the Bucs in rushing yards and in rushing attempts so far this year. And to be honest, Rhett, like, while he hasn't looked the best as a rusher, Rachaad White, that is, he's done some good work as a receiving back this year. I really do believe that. He's got 3 receiving touchdowns this year. That's 3rd on the team behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, tied with Cade Otton. He's got 236 receiving yards this year. That's 4th on the team. He's got 28 receptions. That's 3rd on the team. And he's got 31 targets on the year. That's 4th on the team. So, like, they like Rachaad White as a receiving back. And I think he's done good in that role. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've praised his ability before as a receiving back. I think that's his biggest strength, right?
Okay.
He is just he's a great pass catcher, and I've even said that maybe, just maybe, this is obviously conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat at this point, but maybe at some point the Buccaneers look at adjusting his position, make him more of a Deebo Samuel gadget player, because I think he's athletic and big enough to
That's
do
galaxy
that.
brain.
I know.
That's
You see, I start
brain.
talking with my hands, and that's how you know it's just it's way out there.
So my point being is that to give Sean Tucker more snaps, you have to take snaps away from one of those guys, maybe even both. That's going to be a decision that has to be made, right? Sean Tucker showed a lot of great ability in that Saints game. Not only did he show good ability as a runner, but also as a receiver, right?
He showed good ability against the #1 run defense in the NFL on prime time against the Ravens, and then they stopped giving him the football.
Yeah, so I mean, I do believe Todd Bowles whenever he says that they will give Sean Tucker more opportunities, because it's not really, I guess it is technically Todd Bowles. It's Liam Coen's decision,
Right.
ultimately, at the end of the day. And Rhett, I'm going to tell you right now, one thing that I noticed from last week's game, when they played against the was it the Falcons, sorry.
Falcons.
Where they did not use their receivers as much.
Yeah,
right?
it was I think 20 of those 25 first offensive plays went to the running backs.
Right. And you know what? The offense was still able to move the football. They were still able to, and that's targeting the tight ends. That's targeting the running backs a lot. So Coen knows he has to rely on these running backs, and he's got 3 very good running backs at his disposal. Okay. So I do believe Todd Bowles when he says that, because I trust Liam Coen with this offense. I really have had not many issues with the offense this year. I think we will see more of Sean Tucker. I think the flow of the game is going to dictate that as well. But also, I think that Kansas City, you're going to want to have long, grind out, sustainable drives. And that means you're going to have to be getting, down in the dirt with the run game. Sean Tucker is a guy that can do that, as well as Bucky Irving and a little bit of Rachaad White as well. Honestly, like, my kind of just guess is that we see more of Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker as pure runners. And like, here's kind of how I view it. Bucky Irving's going to be both in running plays and passing plays. Rachaad White might be more in just pure passing plays going forward, and then Sean Tucker might be more in pure running plays going forward, and maybe you see some variation just so it doesn't become telegraphed, right? But that's kind of how I view it. So yes, I do believe Todd Bowles. I do trust Liam Coen to use these running backs as much as they can, because you can only throw around so many snaps, and I think that all 3 of these guys are deserving of snaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rachaad White, not to discredit him, these last few weeks, he has come around in the run game. He's been running the football better when the lanes are there, opened up by the offensive line, which has been playing much better at this point in the season as well. He's been doing a good job, I think, averaging right around 4 yards per carry, if not a little bit more over the last couple of weeks. I like to see that from him. But when you've got Sean Tucker, a guy who can potentially run the football better, in my opinion, that's a second running back that can run the football better than Rachaad White. Like, if Sean Tucker can consistently do that, Bucky Irving, I know he's a rookie, and maybe this sounds ridiculous, but Bucky Irving's already a better runner than Rachaad White is. I just think he's more effective. I think he does better things with the football in his hand as a running back, and I am a fan of his. Sue me if you want to. Evan is a Rachaad White truther, and that's fine. I have no bone to pick with Rachaad White. I love all 3 of these Buccaneers running backs. And again, going back to our point, an abundance of riches for the Buccaneers. Excited to see how they use them this week. I think they could be a huge part of this game plan, just like they were early last week against the Atlanta Falcons. And hopefully this is an offense that can keep moving the football. But speaking of moving the football, we're going to talk about the quarterback in this offense. Baker Mayfield, number 6. So far this season, he has an NFL high 21 touchdowns. He also has an NFL high 9 interceptions. I think the big story is 7 interceptions in his last 3 games, 2,189 passing yards. Baker Mayfield has done a lot of really good things for this Buccaneers offense in 2024. Really picked up where he left off at the end of last year, playing really well. And I think showing that the Buccaneers, for the most part, are getting what they paid for in their investment, right? But these last couple of games here, 7 interceptions in 3 games. You're not going to beat a lot of people. As potent as our offense has been, their ability to put up points. And I know we've been begging the defense for a stop, and that's a topic we'll get to before the end of the show for sure. But it's tough to defend 7 picks in 3 games. And yeah, some of the tic-tac ones against New Orleans are obviously going to be out there. Liam Coen took credit this week and said that he put Baker in a couple of tough spots on the interceptions against Atlanta. But, I mean, regardless, do you think this is something he can turn around here and start playing like he was early on in the season?
Well, first, I think it's important to look at that Saints game where he threw 3. I mean, they still won 51-27. But also a couple of those picks, and I think you'd agree with this, like a couple are not his fault. One got
at least 2.
I'd say at least 2, right? It's very Jameis Winston-esque, to a certain degree. But like, look, the difference here is that like Baker's still playing good ball, in my opinion. I mean, I've been very impressed with this guy. When it's not like he's throwing 21 touchdowns and 21 picks right now.
Right.
That wouldn't be good. But I think that one thing that I was worried about whenever Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down, and the defense started to play bad, was, oh man, is Baker going to start trying to force stuff and run into some mistakes? And we've seen a bit of that. I still think Baker's been the positives far outweigh the negatives, in my opinion. I mean,
yeah,
right. You're basically, I think he's like top 5 in passing yards right now, leading the league in touchdowns with 21 touchdowns through 8 games. That's pretty good football. The interceptions are not great. 9 interceptions there. I agree with you. It obviously does not help you win football games. But I still Bleav that if Baker can clean up those picks going forward, he's on a great pace right now.
Absolutely. I think it's a real test for him to show that he can consistently be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, because through the first 6 weeks of the season, he was upper crust. He was top 5, without a doubt. And, a big part of him being consistent once again is Liam Coen's offense. So we have to credit Liam Coen, but you got to credit Baker too. I know the transition from a Canales offense to a Liam Coen offense wasn't as drastic as it would have been for other coordinators, but it's still a first-year offensive coordinator, first-year play caller, and an updated offense for Baker Mayfield. He is now playing without his top 2 weapons on the offense, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They've been able to effectively move the football. A couple of the picks that we had talked about, the 2 tic-tac interceptions, against New Orleans, the freak accidents, I guess we could call those are what they are. But the other ones are exactly what you had mentioned, which is, sometimes I don't know if the composure just gets away from him. I don't know if it's panic, but it's trying to play hero ball. It's trying to do too much. It's trying to make the play when the play isn't there, or just missing the first play entirely and then trying to make something out of nothing. We saw it with the end zone interception against the Ravens. He was looking in the end zone, had Bucky Irving on the check down right there, looked at him. I don't know if he just didn't see him, if it didn't register, saw him too late. Looks over to the right side, goes corner for Jalen McMillan. It's an interception. So things like that, he's got to prove he can get over. And I think he can. I like Baker Mayfield. I said it earlier this week on one of our shows that I still think he is the guy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I truly do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Rhett, he's projected 4,600 passing yards and 45 touchdowns passing at the end of the season and 19 interceptions. That's not good. But like, he is one of the positives for the Bucs so far this year.
Yeah, he's been one of the negatives in the losses these last few weeks. When you talk about some of the biggest problems the Bucs have faced, turnovers are towards the top. If the defense wasn't the biggest storyline, it would be the interceptions. That's just the way that it is. So I think he will get better. I think he knows it's a big-time week for protecting the football, and I'm excited about what this offense can do. But before we talk about the other side of the football, I wanted to highlight a guy that I think is going to be huge in helping Baker Mayfield be more consistent in throwing the football once again in this offense. I think it's a huge week for Cade Otton at the tight end position. He has really shown that he can step up in this offense and be the guy to make the catches that Chris Godwin was making. One of the biggest harps we've had on Jalen McMillan so far this season is, his contested catch rate is awful. I think for a while he was 0 for 5. I don't know if that percentage has changed since I looked at it last. He has the ability to get open. When he's not dropping passes, he can't reel in the nitty-gritty stuff yet. And sometimes it takes time. He's a rookie receiver. It is what it is. He's in a much more prominent situation now than he was 4 weeks ago. But Cade Otton at the tight end position is, getting double-digit targets a game, and he's making the most of them. He is making tough catches. He's finding the end zone. And the Kansas City Chiefs have done a piss-poor job of defending the tight end position over the last 4 games. I know that they've played a lot of premier tight ends. Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, that room for the Raiders had a really big day. But they've given up over 400 yards and a trip to the end zone. They gave up a touchdown to just the tight ends over the last 4 games. I know that they have Cade Otton circled twice on the game film this week, but I still think Liam Coen can get creative enough and find success underneath and just let Cade Otton eat, man. High percentage looks for Baker Mayfield. Pad the stats for Cade Otton. I like the over on all of his receiving props for another week in a row. I am very high on Cade Otton in this matchup against Kansas City, and I think it could be a huge advantage for Tampa.
Well, the Chiefs against tight ends so far this year, they're 3rd in targets. They are 2nd in receptions allowed against tight ends, 2nd in receiving yards allowed against tight ends, and I Bleav in the top 12 in touchdowns allowed to tight ends. So, I agree. They have not been great against tight ends this year. The Bucs can take advantage of that. Granted, the Bucs have not been great against tight ends this year either. Yeah. A lot of that's been Kyle Pitts. But look, Cade's been great the past 2 games. 20 targets, 17 receptions, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's been cooking. Basically, as soon as Chris Godwin got that injury, and as soon as Mike Evans got that injury, they've relied a lot on Cade and the running backs too, like we talked about earlier. I think that's going to continue in this matchup. I've been a big fan of Cade this year. He's really shown a lot of good ability, especially, he's got 1 more year after this, and he's definitely showing this is going to be his best season yet. So it's very encouraging. It's a very good thing. He's proving that he's a starting caliber tight end in this league, and can really make plays for you if you need him to. So it's been very encouraging. I agree with you that Cade Otton could very well have a big game here. He's been a favorite target of Mayfield the past 2 games, and I do Bleav that can and will continue. Real quick note on McMillan. He is a rookie. He is experiencing growing pains. I don't necessarily know if his type of game is to be like a contested catch type of guy.
Right.
Just because he is a bit of a, he's not like Mike Evans, built like Mike Evans, or even Chris Godwin for that matter. Those guys are freaking huge. But, Cade is. So I definitely want to see more of Cade going forward, even in the end zone as well. Red zone, I think he can be very effective.
Yeah, and when you think about guys who are available, I think Raheem Jarrett could potentially be a guy to make those gritty catches. He had some very impactful catches against Atlanta. I know he's just getting back in the lineup here, getting healthy once again, but hopefully he has a more prominent role. Looking at Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard, I know he was on the injury report, listed as questionable, but should play on Monday night. Talking a little bit more about this offense as we kind of put a bow on it here. They're going to have to move the football. And I think all the guys that we mentioned are going to be huge in them being able to move the football. But overall, when we try to forecast how this matchup is going to go, in my head, I don't know how many changes are going to be made on the defensive side of the ball. I think, unfortunately for Kansas City, this is going to hopefully be a get-right game for their offense, right? For them to go out there and find positive production. I don't think Pat Mahomes is in a slump, but 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions isn't great when you are, back-to-back Super Bowl champion, considered the best quarterback in the NFL. I think he is all of those things, and I think with the deficiencies the Bucs have had, protecting the middle of the field, giving up the yardage they have to tight ends, Kyle Pitts having the blockbuster day, maybe this is the big game that a lot of fantasy owners have been waiting for Travis Kelce, because I don't think he's had any blockbuster games so far this season. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But regardless, I think the Bucs are going to have to put up a lot of points. And I think if Liam Coen is able to move the football the way that he has been against some of these really good defenses, looking at that game against Baltimore, the Bucs just have to not shoot themselves in the foot here, and I really do think they can compete.
Oh, dude, I don't trust this defense against the Chiefs. I don't. I don't.
I'm glad you said it so I didn't have to.
Yeah, I don't. Look, dude, I went on a whole rant after the game against the Falcons. Look, like, Rhett, an undrafted free agent, and I like these guys. Don't get me wrong.
You like every player.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I like everybody. But KJ Britt's playing like a fourth string linebacker. JTS is playing like a third string pass rusher. Yaya, I don't care. Look,
hasn't been there.
I've seen a lot of people in the comments say like Yaya's been that dude. He's still good. I'm not seeing it. Like, I'm not seeing it consistently. Chris Braswell's been invisible. Anthony Nelson is what he is. He's a third, fourth string pass rusher.
What are they paying him? $7 million?
I think 5.
I'm not upset at player salaries. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'll never be upset at a player getting paid. But I mean, we reacted to that. We reacted to Anthony Nelson's contract when the news came out. You get what you pay for. And right now, I think the Bucs definitely have a hole in their pocket when it comes to Anthony Nelson because he is.
Zion's been good, which has been great. I love that. He's going to have a heck of a matchup against DeAndre Hopkins. But Tyreek Thunderberg is an undrafted cornerback at 2. He's playing like an undrafted cornerback, and that's nothing against him. It is what it is. Your backups are Josh Hayes, 6th-round cornerback, who has barely played cornerback, at the NFL level. He's mainly a special teams guy. Jordan Whitehead's having communication issues. We talked about that a little bit earlier in the show. You didn't have Tyke Smith, which sucked. That's why Tyke Smith coming back is very important.
Yeah.
It's just, and then, KJ Britt. Man.
Do you see Todd Bowles making any changes for the foreseeable future? Like, listen, play who you have. Play who you have. And I understand that, they just cut Kalen DeLoach off the practice squad this week. I know that Servassier Dennis is gone for the foreseeable future. I think his season might be over at this point.
Yeah.
I know there aren't many viable options at linebacker, but are they going to do anything at all?
Is JJ Russell really that bad? Or is
Antonio Greer that right?
Yeah, like what? No, I agree. Like, dude, KJ Britt is like a 4th string linebacker right now. The dude is just not. And Rhett, we've talked about this. Like, they've gambled a lot on defense, and they're not winning a lot of their gambles right now. They won the Zion McCollum one, but like the pass rush, non-existent. Inside linebacker besides Levante David, KJ Britt is not playing well this year. The cornerback room, and I understand they have some injuries with Bryce Hall being hurt. That really sucked. And Jamel Dean being on the IR. But like, this team has a significant lack of veteran depth right now on that depth chart that know this playbook. And it's biting them in the butt right now. I don't know if they're going to make any changes. They did make the change of Tyreek Thunderberg to Josh Hayes in the second half last week, and like it was a little bit better. Is Keenan Isaac really that bad? He's on this roster. Like, there's a lot of legitimate questions there about the depth of this team right now, and in some of the decision making on taking some guys out that quite frankly just shouldn't be playing right now and just aren't playing well.
I think a lot of people are going to point the finger at Todd Bowles. We have certainly done that, and there's obviously a lot of things he's guilty of. But player execution matters, and play who you have. Whoever's out there, whoever's available, they can only play as well as they can play, right? So if you got some bum at linebacker and that's the only guy you have, I guess it is what it is. But KJ Britt was on the field for 97% of the defensive snaps against the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah,
like you said, listing off these other names, I know the Bucs don't have any viable veteran depth, but like I feel like, if you're a cook in a kitchen and every week you've got to make lasagna and every week your lasagna tastes like shit, but you just don't change any of the ingredients. You're just like, well, maybe next week it won't taste this bad. You don't evaluate what you have. You don't evaluate what you're putting into your mix, and the product suffers. And I think as a head coach in the NFL, Todd Bowles by now should at least do something. I don't know what he can do. I don't know. I'm not a coach in the NFL for that reason, because I don't know what I would do in this situation. But I mean, changes have to be made, because it doesn't feel like it's going to get better.
Well, I think part of that's on Jason Light, man. Like, remember back whenever we had like your Kevin Minters and your Carl Nassibs, and like you had veteran guys who kind of came out of nowhere and were giving you solid, meaningful snaps. The Bucs defense is lacking that this year. They just are. They don't have anybody on the practice squad that's going to, and like they don't have veteran guys that have done this that you can step in, and it's unfortunate. So I do Bleav part of it is on Todd Bowles, part of it is on Jason Light. Like I said, they gambled a lot on a lot of young players on this defensive side of the ball, and there's a lot of growing pains, and it's kicking their butts right now. So I don't expect them to make a change really for KJ Britt. It seems like they just don't really feel the desire to play JJ Russell or Antonio Greer Jr. right now. I would give one of those guys a shot, but it just seems like that's not going to change. I was going to say unless something dramatic happens, but like KJ Britt's pretty bad, Rhett.
Yeah, hoping it gets better for him throughout the course of the 2024 season. The Buccaneers have only a couple of games left before the bye week, a much-needed rest for the Buccaneers. But between now and then, they have got Kansas City this week, and on a short week, next Sunday, the San Francisco 49ers. So, again, quite the challenge for the Buccaneers over the next couple of weeks. But listen, I'll say this, man. When this team has been at their best, and it's hard to be at your best without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. It's hard to be at your best when you've got a defense, when you've got guys executing the way that they have been. It's hard to be at your best. But when this team has been at their best, they look like a top-tier NFL talent. Like, they really do look like a team that is as close as they possibly can be to having it all together. That's when they can consistently put together 4 quarters. And they know that they are going to have to do that this week to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So diving into our game predictions for Week 9, Monday Night Football, going to be another late night of coverage for both of us, Mr. James Hill. Excited to watch this one unfold. I think the Buccaneers do score a lot of points. I don't quite know if it's enough. I will say Tampa Bay 28, Kansas City 34. I think it's an exciting game. I think these offenses are going to go blow for blow. I think we're going to go. We're going to know pretty early. We're going to know by the end of the first quarter that like a lot of touchdowns are going to win this game. Going to have to take care of the football. Baker Mayfield, Liam Coen, this Buccaneers offense going to have to continue to move the football. I think, as you said earlier, making some of these drives back-breaking for the Kansas City defense, keeping their defense on the field, grinding out these first down conversions, maybe relying on the run game. If you can dictate the pace of the game here, get an early start, and control the pace of the game, I do like the Buccaneers' chances to keep up with a Kansas City offense. DeAndre Hopkins could have a big afternoon, though, so a big-time matchup for Zion McCollum and this Buccaneers secondary as well. But yeah, 34-28, I think Kansas City comes out on top here. James, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to say Kansas City wins 31-24. I don't know. It's just, I just don't trust the defense right now. Like you said, this is probably this feels like a get-right game for the Chiefs offense, and that sucks. But it's just, there's not a lot of guys to trust on that defense right now. So we're going to have to wait and see. Some guys are going to have to step up. They're going to have to prove it. The defense going to have to prove it. I feel like this offense can move the ball and score points. But defensively, it's just there's not a lot of guys I'd trust on that defense right now besides like your Levante David, your Antoine Winfield Jr., Zion McCollum, and like Vita Vea.
Yeah.
So we'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, he's not regarded as the most mobile quarterback in the world, but he's certainly more mobile than a Kirk Cousins. So you're going to be relying on your athletic outside linebackers, you guys like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, the guys with the length to potentially have to chase him down. But, meaningful pressure on the quarterback goes a long way. I think hopefully some changes on the defense this week, but just like you said, I don't know how much I trust them either. I don't know. We'll see. Any given Monday, I suppose, should be a fun matchup. We will be here live, or James won't be here. He'll be live on his own deal, but we will be live on the Cannon Fire Podcast, youtube.com/Cannon Fire Podcast. Win, lose, or draw after the game Monday night. It's going to be another late one, but I think our last primetime game for at least a little while, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
They have only one or two.
The 49ers game's at 4:25.
I'm fine with a 4 o'clock kickoff. That's okay with me. But
yeah,
8:30, 8:15, man. That's
it's past your bedtime.
I know. Yeah, I'm a working man. James, I want to thank you for filling in for this period, and I want to thank you for showing up and helping me break down Week 9's game. Excited for how this thing plays out. Where can people find you and your content?
Here on YouTube, man. Over at Mr. Bucs Nation. Got a lot of stuff going on over there. Still making a ton of content. So yeah, happy to be here, man. I'm gonna be here a lot over the next couple of weeks. So should be some fun.
Beautiful. Looking forward to it. Always enjoy your insight and excited to hear some more from you soon. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram and Twitter, at Rhetticus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. We'll talk to you in the next one. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.